A duffel bag lay discarded in a grimy alleyway amidst trash and shadows. But when the millionaire heard a whimper coming from within, his life changed forever. The documents beside the baby could shatter everything he had built. What followed would transform not only the fate of the abandoned child, but also the heart of a man who only understood the power of money. Subscribe to the channel for heartwarming stories every day. The millionaire adjusted his platinum Rolex as he strode across the polished sidewalk of Wall Street. His Italian loafers reflected the twilight as he walked with the posture of a man who owned the world, or at least a considerable chunk of it. The empire he'd built over 2 decades spoke for itself. Skyscrapers with his name emblazoned at the top, a fleet of cars that would never know the common dust of the streets, and an army of people who quaked at the sound of his voice. That night, however, something made him deviate from his usual route. An anonymous call, an encrypted message about compromising documents, and a veiled threat. He decided to cut through an alley, something he'd never do under normal circumstances. The $10,000 suit looked out of place among the damp-stained walls and overflowing dumpsters. Then he heard it, an almost imperceptible sound, muffled like a distant sigh. He stopped, suspicious, looking around. The sound came again, fragile, intermittent, almost lost in the distant hum of traffic. A cry. The millionaire frowned, annoyed by the interruption in his thoughts. His eyes scanned the alley until they fixed on a rectangular object, partially hidden among torn garbage bags. A bag of worn leather with darkened stains and a nearly broken clasp. "Ridiculous," he muttered, to himself, already preparing to move on. But the sound returned, weaker this time. Something about that fragility stopped him. He approached reluctantly, as if each step dragged him into forbidden territory. As he touched the rusted clasp of the bag, his hands, accustomed only to signing million-dollar deals, trembled slightly. What he found inside made his heart, long dormant beneath layers of cultivated indifference, lurch violently. A baby, tiny, reddish, wrapped in a tattered blanket that barely provided warmth. The child's eyes, not yet fully open, moved restlessly under translucent eyelids. The breath, short and spaced, formed small clouds in the cold air. Beside the child, nestled in the narrow space, a file of documents. The millionaire opened it with now visibly trembling fingers. His face, normally a mask of controlled superiority, paled as he recognized his own name on the papers. DNA tests, letters, reports, evidence. The truth hit him like a punch. The child was his daughter. Memories of a brief affair with a young employee almost a year ago flooded his mind. An encounter he had buried beneath more important deals, forgotten like so many others. But there was the consequence, breathing with difficulty, fighting for every moment of life. The millionaire looked around, suddenly aware of the danger that the alley posed to a newborn. Night was falling rapidly, bringing with it a biting chill. The child wouldn't survive much longer in those conditions. Making a decision that contradicted everything he was, cold, calculating, ruthless, the millionaire carefully closed the bag, leaving an opening for air, and lifted it. The weight of that small life and the documents that could destroy everything he had built felt infinitely greater than any contract he had ever carried. His phone rang. It was his personal driver, asking where he was. The millionaire hesitated for only a second before answering. "Change the plans. Take me to the lake house. No questions, and be prepared for a long night." As he walked out of the alley, he felt the soft movement of the child inside the bag. Something inside him also moved. Something he thought had died long ago. The lake house stood silent and dark, like an island isolated from the world. It was the millionaire's refuge from the spotlight, a place where even his closest assistants rarely had permission to enter. On that cold night, the lights came on one by one, breaking the property's lethargic rhythm. The baby, now lying on the king-size bed, looked even smaller against the immaculate white of the imported sheets. The millionaire watched the child with a mixture of fascination and dread. His hands, accustomed to manipulating numbers and destinies, seemed clumsy as he tried to check if the little one was still breathing. "What do I do now?" he murmured to the silence of the mansion. His first impulse was to call his lawyer, the same man who, according to the documents found in the bag, had taken care of the problem by having the child's mother committed to a mental institution without his knowledge. The thought of confronting him burned in his chest, but there were more urgent matters. The baby needed immediate care. She was dehydrated, cold, and her breathing seemed increasingly weak. The millionaire ran through a mental list of people he could call without raising suspicion. His social circle, vast in numbers but shallow in trust, suddenly seemed useless. After minutes of hesitation, he dialed the number of his main house's former housekeeper, a stern but discreet woman who had raised 3 children alone and knew the value of well-paid silence. "I need your help. It's an emergency," he said, with an urgency he had never shown before. "Bring everything a newborn would need. And a doctor, someone who knows how to keep secrets." While he waited, the millionaire turned his attention to the file of documents. Each paper revealed a story he didn't know. The hidden pregnancy, the woman's desperate attempts to contact him, always blocked by his assistants. And finally, the lawyer's intervention who, upon discovering the situation, took drastic measures to protect the client's interests. A letter, handwritten on crumpled paper, made his stomach churn. "I know they will never allow these words to reach you. But if you ever find our daughter, know that I tried. The clinic where they keep me says it's for my own good, but we both know the truth. I am slowly dying in here. When I leave, she will be alone in the world unless you find her." I ask nothing. For myself, it's too late. But she didn't ask to be born into this silence. The millionaire let the letter fall onto the Persian rug. A lump formed in his throat, a sensation long forgotten. He approached the bed and, hesitant, touched the baby's tiny hand. The child's fingers, reflexively, closed around his index finger with surprising strength. That simple gesture, so insignificant to the world outside, pierced decades of emotional walls meticulously constructed. Something primal, ancestral, awakened within him, an instinct that no bank account could buy or stifle. When the housekeeper arrived, accompanied by a middle-aged doctor with piercing eyes, she found the powerful businessman sitting on the edge of the bed, motionless, watching with almost painful intensity the baby who held his finger. "She needs a name," said the doctor, after examining the child and providing initial care. The millionaire didn't answer immediately. His gaze swept across the luxurious room, as impersonal as an expensive hotel suite, then returned to the child, who was fighting for life. "For now, she's just my daughter," he finally replied. "That's already more than I deserved." Outside, the first rays of sunlight began to gild the surface of the lake. A new day was dawning, bringing with it the weight of a decision that would change everything. To keep the child's existence a secret, to investigate what really happened to her mother, and to confront the man who thought he controlled every aspect of his life. The millionaire didn't know how to be a father. He had no role models to follow. His own father had been just an absent figure who left money and no affectionate memories. But as he watched the little one struggle for each breath, he felt seized by a fierce determination he had never experienced in any negotiation or business conquest. Hire a pediatric nurse, the best. Say it's for a family member, and that confidentiality is non-negotiable, he ordered the housekeeper. If a single word about this leaks, the consequences will be severe. The woman nodded, recognizing in his tone something new, a vulnerability barely disguised beneath his usual harshness. "And, sir," she hesitated at the door, "congratulations on your daughter." The millionaire didn't respond. His eyes couldn't stray from the small life that in some inexplicable way had already begun to fill a void he didn't even know existed. 3 days passed like a silent whirlwind. The millionaire cancelled meetings, delegated crucial decisions, and for the first time in 2 decades, turned off his phone for entire hours. To the outside world, he was on an international business trip. To the small team that now circulated, discreetly through the lake house, nurse, doctor, and housekeeper, he was a man on the verge of a transformation that he himself didn't understand. The lake house's office, once a sanctuary of obsessive work, had become an investigation center. On the walls, now covered with documents, photographs, and timelines, the millionaire tried to reconstruct the last months of his daughter's mother's life. "She tried to contact me 8 times, he murmured to himself, tracing with his finger the dates marked in red. 8 times. Each attempt had been intercepted. Emails deleted by his personal assistant, visits blocked by security, letters that never reached his office. The efficiency of his team in protecting him from inconveniences now seemed like a macabre conspiracy. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. The nurse, a 40-year-old woman with kind eyes and steady hands, entered without waiting for an answer. "Sir, the little one is awake and more alert today. I thought you'd want to know." The millionaire nodded curtly, uncomfortable with the idea of demonstrating any anxiety. But as soon as the nurse left, he hurried down the hall towards the room that had been improvised as a nursery. The child was lying in a crib, hastily brought from an exclusive baby store. Her eyes, now more open, had a shade of brown that he recognized immediately, the same as his own mother's. The recognition of this genetic detail struck him like a wave, making even more real the biological bond that united them. "She's responding well to the medication," explained the doctor, who was monitoring the baby's vital signs. "But it's still too early to celebrate. It was a very severe dehydration." "What else does she need?" asked the millionaire, unconsciously adjusting his tie, as he always did when he felt vulnerable. "Besides medical treatment." The doctor looked at him with a frankness rare among those who surrounded him. "She needs human contact, warmth, to feel that she's not alone in the world." The millionaire looked away, unable to face the simple truth. In those words, his whole life had been built distancing himself from human contact, from ties he considered exploitable weaknesses. His only connection had been with power, a cold mistress who had never disappointed him. Can I touch her?" The question came out almost as a whisper. The doctor nodded, surprised by the hesitation of this man who, according to the newspapers, was capable of demolishing entire corporations without a shred of remorse. With excessive care, the millionaire extended his hand towards the crib. His trembling fingers touched the soft skin of the baby's cheek. The sensation was indescribable, like touching something too precious for this world. Does she have a chance to be normal? After everything, babies are surprisingly resilient, replied the doctor. But the truth is, we don't know what she went through before you found her. Only time will tell. At that moment, the phone that the millionaire kept exclusively for emergencies vibrated in his pocket. On the screen, the name of his personal lawyer flashed insistently. The same man who, according to the documents, had orchestrated the commitment of his daughter's mother. "What should I tell him?" he asked the doctor, more as a thought aloud than a real question. "Are you asking me that?" The woman frowned. "I don't know what game you powerful people play, but there's a sick child here who by some miracle survived. If she were my daughter, I'd know exactly what to do with whoever put her at risk." The millionaire stared at the doctor with a mixture of surprise and respect. It had been years since anyone had spoken to him that way. He hung up the phone without answering. "I have a meeting with him tomorrow," he said, more to himself than to the doctor. "I need to understand how far this betrayal goes." When the doctor left, the millionaire pulled an armchair close to the crib. He sat there, watching every movement, every breath of the small life that, without warning, had become the center of his universe. Hours passed. The sun set over the lake, painting the sky orange and purple. The mansion's automatic lights came on softly, and he remained there, motionless, lost in memories of his own childhood, the cold boarding schools, the absence of hugs, the early learning that vulnerability was weakness. "It won't be like that for you," he murmured to the sleeping baby. "I promise." The promise, made in the silence of that room, weighed more than all the contracts he had ever signed. It was a commitment he didn't know if he was capable of fulfilling. But that, for the first time, mattered more than any fortune. When the nurse returned for the night shift, she found the powerful businessman asleep in the armchair, one of his hands stretched out towards the crib. As if even in his sleep he needed to be sure his daughter was there, safe. "I've never seen anything like it," she commented in a low voice to the housekeeper who was bringing tea. "Neither have I," replied the older woman. "But maybe that's exactly what he needed, someone he can't buy or intimidate." Outside, the wind stirred the waters of the lake, creating ripples that reflected the moonlight. Inside the mansion, another type of ripple was beginning, deeper, more permanent, reshaping the outline of a heart long hardened. The office on the top floor of the skyscraper seemed smaller now, as if the walls of glass and steel had closed in around him. The millionaire watched the city below, a carpet of lights and shadows that once represented his undisputed dominion. Today, however, he felt strangely disconnected from that power. "You look tired," commented the lawyer as he entered carrying a leather briefcase, and the professional smile he had worn for 2 decades. Was the trip stressful? The millionaire didn't answer immediately. He studied the man before him. Graying hair, meticulously trimmed, impeccable suit, the discreet but extremely expensive watch on his wrist. For years he had considered him almost a friend, the closest someone in his position could have to a friendship. Now he saw only a stranger. "Sit down," he finally ordered, indicating the chair in front of his desk. "I have some questions about a delicate matter." The lawyer settled in with the ease of someone who has nothing to fear. "Always at your service." Without a word, the millionaire slid a copy of the documents found in the duffel bag across the desk. He carefully observed every micro-expression on the other's face as he examined the papers. A wrinkle of worry, a slight paling, fingers that tightened slightly on the paper. To any ordinary observer, nothing much. To someone who closed billion-dollar deals by reading the smallest sign of weakness in his opponents, it was a confession in high definition. "Where did you find this?" asked the lawyer, his voice betraying only a slight hesitation. "The question isn't where I found it, but what you did." The millionaire leaned forward. "I want to know why my personal lawyer would commit a woman to a mental institution without my knowledge, using funds from an anonymous donation that came out of my account." The lawyer quickly composed himself, adjusting his tie as one prepares for a familiar debate. It was a preventive measure. The woman was unstable, making threats, claiming a pregnancy that we couldn't confirm. The timing was terrible. With the European merger underway, he paused calculatedly. "We acted in your best interest, as always." "We acted? Who else is involved?" "Your personal assistant became aware of the situation first. She came to me worried. I consulted the head of security. We decided it was best to protect you from this inconvenience." The millionaire rose slowly, walking around the desk until he stood in front of the lawyer. "And at any point did you Verify if the pregnancy was real, if I was really the father. A tense silence settled in the room. Understand, the priority was to avoid a scandal. We offered her the best treatment available. She died in that clinic. The words came out like stones, and the child was abandoned in a duffel bag, in an alley, almost dead. The lawyer's face lost color. Child? What child? My daughter, the baby who was in the duffel bag, along with these documents. The revelation fell like a bomb in the silent office. The lawyer stood up, visibly shaken. This changes everything. We need to act immediately. I can activate contacts for a discreet adoption process, maybe a family overseas. For what? The millionaire interrupted, his voice dangerously calm. To remedy the situation, obviously. The lawyer gestured as if it were obvious. A man in your position can't just become a single father of a baby who appeared out of nowhere. Think about the implications, the questions, the negative exposure. It was as if something broke inside the millionaire, a last barrier that separated the man he was from the man he could be. His hand came down hard on the desk, making the objects tremble. You don't understand. I'm not asking for your help to remedy the situation. I'm informing you that I know what you did and that there will be consequences. The lawyer took a step back, recognizing the cold fury in the client's eyes. Be reasonable. Everything we did was to protect you. No, you did it to protect the image you created of me, to preserve the money-making machine, not the man. The millionaire walked to the window, watching the city begin to light up with the twilight. I want all the documents related to this case on my desk tomorrow. Contracts with the clinic, bank transfers, everything. And prepare your letter of resignation. You're making a mistake. The lawyer tried one last time. If this story leaks, then I'll deal with it, as I should have done from the beginning. When the lawyer left, defeated but still calculating his next moves, the millionaire allowed himself a moment of pure exhaustion. The confrontation had extracted from him an energy he didn't know he would need. He picked up the phone and called. The lake house. How is she? The nurse's voice came reassuringly from the other end. Better. She managed to feed twice today. The doctor is optimistic. A wave of relief washed over his body. I'll be there in an hour. As he descended in the private elevator, alone with his thoughts, the millionaire reflected on how, in just a few days, his priorities had changed completely. The unanswered emails, the calls from investors, the pending contracts. Everything seemed surprisingly dispensable compared to the news that his daughter had fed well. On the way to the car, his cell phone rang. It was his now ex-personal assistant, probably already informed by the lawyer about the approaching earthquake. I can't talk now, he replied curtly. But sir, Business World magazine is trying to confirm a story about you and an abandoned baby. They have sources that... The millionaire hung up the phone. So it had begun. The truth, or some version of it, was leaking. He would have days, maybe hours, before the media vultures turned his life and his daughter's into fodder for the masses hungry for scandals. For a moment, he felt the old impulse to retreat, to let his team handle the problem, to keep himself protected in his ivory tower. But the image of the little one in the crib, fighting for each breath, pushed those considerations aside. To the lake, he instructed the driver, and you can turn off the radio. I need to think. As the car glided silently through city traffic, the millionaire made two decisions that would alter the course of his life. He would publicly acknowledge the child as his daughter and investigate to the fullest extent what really happened to her mother. The price would be high, but for the first time in decades, the calculation didn't involve only numbers and power. It involved something more valuable and more fragile. The chance to reclaim his own humanity. The camera flashes were relentless, like artificial lightning illuminating every angle of his face. The millionaire, sitting at the center of a long table, faced what would once have been his worst nightmare, an uncontrolled press conference with reporters hungry for a story that could topple one of the most powerful men in the country. Is it true that you found an abandoned baby in an alley? Sources say that the baby is your biological child. Do you confirm? There are rumors that the child's mother died under suspicious circumstances. Are you aware of this? The questions came like projectiles, one after another, without a pause for breath. The press aide, hired in haste, tried in vain to organize the chaos. The millionaire adjusted the microphone and raised his hand, asking for silence. Surprisingly, the room obeyed. "I will answer all questions truthfully," he began, his voice strangely calm for someone whose empire teetered on the brink of collapse. "Yes, I found an abandoned baby, a newborn girl. Yes, confirmatory tests have shown that I am the biological father. And yes, the mother died in a mental institution under circumstances that I am personally investigating." A murmur ran through the room, followed by a new avalanche of questions. Did you know about the pregnancy? Why was the child's mother committed? Are you assuming custody of the baby? The millionaire took a deep breath. For the first time in his public career, he would speak without carefully prepared scripts, without polished communication strategies. "I was not informed of the pregnancy. I have now discovered that several attempts to contact me were intercepted by members of my team, without my knowledge or consent. As for the commitment, the documents indicate that it was done through an anonymous donation, which, as I recently discovered, came from my own funds in an operation orchestrated by my then lawyer." He raised his hand again when the murmur grew louder. "And yes, I am fully assuming legal custody and responsibility for my daughter, as is my moral and legal duty." A more aggressive journalist stood up. "Isn't it too convenient that you claim ignorance of something so serious? How can we believe that a man who controls every penny of $1 billion empire didn't know what was happening to a former employee pregnant with his child?" The room fell silent. It was the question everyone wanted to ask, the center of public distrust. The millionaire felt a pressure in his chest, a mixture of anger and shame that he had never admitted to feeling. His eyes swept across the sea of skeptical faces before him. For a moment, he considered the rehearsed answer, the polished denial that his new advisor had suggested. But something had changed inside him. "You're right," he finally replied, provoking general astonishment. "It's exactly the kind of thing I shouldn't ignore, that no decent human being would ignore. And that's the hardest truth I've faced in recent days, recognizing that I became the kind of man who created a system where people believed they were serving me by hiding a pregnancy and committing a woman against her will." The silence in the room was palpable. Several journalists exchanged surprised glances. This was not the corporate, legally safe answer they expected. "For years," he continued, "I cultivated an image and a structure where efficiency and results were above human considerations. I created an environment where subordinates believed that protecting my interests meant eliminating any vulnerability, any real connection, even if it cost lives." An older journalist, known for her unwavering ethics, stood up slowly. "Are you essentially admitting guilt for the death of your daughter's mother?" The millionaire held her gaze. "I'm admitting responsibility. Legal guilt will be determined by the ongoing investigations, which I initiated and am funding with full transparency. But moral responsibility? Yes, it's mine. For creating a system where this was possible. For becoming the kind of man that others presumed would prefer never to know about his own daughter." The headlines the next day were merciless. "Tycoon admits responsibility in abandoned baby case. Empire in crisis. The duffel bag that changed everything. From tyrant to father, can a man really change?" The shares of his companies plummeted as the board of directors convened emergency meetings. However, to the surprise of many, a growing number of people expressed on social media a cautious respect for the brutal honesty of his confession. It was not forgiveness nor approval, but a narrow window of possibility. Meanwhile, at the lake house, far from the media storm, a silent revolution was taking place. The millionaire, who had previously barely noticed the presence of staff, was now learning from the nurse how to change diapers, prepare bottles, and interpret the baby's different cries. "She recognizes your voice," commented the nurse one afternoon, when the little one calmed down upon hearing the millionaire enter the room. "It's amazing how that happens so early." He approached the crib, still clumsy in his movements, and touched his daughter's little hand. As always, the tiny fingers closed around his index finger with surprising strength. "She's strong," he murmured, more to himself than to others. "Like her mother must have been," replied the doctor, who was checking the little one's vital signs. "To survive so long in that clinic, fighting to maintain the pregnancy, she was an extraordinary woman." Those words hit the millionaire like a physical blow. Amidst the chaos of discovery, the media and the investigations, he had given little thought to who his daughter's mother really was. A shadow, a name on documents, a brief fling he barely remembered. "I want to know everything about her," he decided suddenly. "Not just the clinical facts, but who she was, what she liked, why she chose to work at my company. Everything." "Does that matter now?" asked the housekeeper, surprised by the sudden show of personal interest. "Yes," he replied with unexpected conviction. "One day my daughter will ask about her mother, and I want to be able to tell her the truth. All of it." The boardroom on the 20th floor remained silent, despite the 12 people seated around the oval table. The millionaire observed the tense faces of the board members, men and women who for weeks had demanded his temporary resignation from the group's chairmanship. Today, however, they were not there to discuss the future of the corporation. They were there for an entirely different reason. "I appreciate everyone's presence," he began, his calm voice contrasting with the charged atmosphere. "I know this is not a conventional meeting, but before making any decisions about my removal, there's something you need to know." An assistant distributed sealed folders to each board member. The millionaire waited for everyone to open the documents before continuing. "What you have in your hands is the preliminary result of the independent investigation I commissioned. As you can see, the transfers to the mental institution where my daughter's mother was committed did not come only from my personal account, but also from corporate funds, specifically from the contingency fund that is under the direct control of 3 people in this room." The silence turned into palpable tension. Some councillors visibly paled as they examined the numbers and dates. "This is absurd," exclaimed the chief financial officer, a 60-year-old man with decades of service to the company. "I would never authorize something like that." "I'm not suggesting that all of you knew," clarified the millionaire. "But someone knew. Someone with access to the authorization codes, someone who actively participated in what happened to her." The general counsel, a woman known for her calculated coolness, leaned forward. "What exactly are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating that what happened was not just an isolated decision by my former personal lawyer. It was a coordinated operation involving corporate resources to remove a threat to the company's stability on the eve of the European merger." It looks crossed around the table. Silent alliances realigned in real time as each board member calculated implications, risks, and next steps. "Why show us this now?" asked the chairman of the board, a white-haired gentleman who rarely spoke. "At meetings, you could have taken it directly to the authorities." The millionaire studied the man for a moment. "Because I want you to understand what's at stake. It's not just about my reputation or my daughter's custody. It's about a young woman who died alone in an institution because she represented an inconvenience to our business." He paused, his eyes sweeping over each face in the room. "And because, despite everything, I still believe that there are limits that not even we should cross." The silence that followed was interrupted by the soft sound of a door opening. The millionaire's assistant, pale and visibly nervous, entered, holding a phone. "Sorry to interrupt," she murmured, "but it's the nurse from the lake house. She said it's urgent." The millionaire's heart raced instantly. In 2 weeks of unexpected fatherhood, he had learned that urgent could mean anything from a simple fever to the worst possible scenario. "We'll continue in 15 minutes, he announced, rising abruptly. In the empty hallway, away from the calculating gazes of the board, he answered the phone with a tense voice. "What happened?" "Sir, I apologize for interrupting." The nurse's voice sounded strangely hesitant. "It's not a medical emergency. The little one is fine, but a woman appeared on the property. She says she's the sister of the baby's mother." The world seemed to freeze for an instant. "How did she find the place?" "Apparently, she worked briefly in administration at one of your subsidiaries. She saw the news and made the connection when she recognized her sister's name in the leaked documents." The millionaire closed his eyes, trying to process this new twist. "Is she there now?" "Yes, sir. Security wanted to send her away, but I thought you'd want to know. She brought photographs and a teddy bear that she says belonged to her sister when she was a child." Something clenched painfully in the millionaire's chest. In all his projections, in all the scenarios he had anticipated, he had never considered the existence of a family. People who knew, loved, and now mourned the woman he barely remembered. "Keep her there. I'm coming back now." Upon returning to the meeting room, he found the board in heated discussions that ceased abruptly with his entrance. "Ladies and gentlemen, a situation has arisen that demands my immediate attention. I propose the following. The 3 signatories of the contingency fund will remain for a private meeting with me and the investigators early tomorrow. The rest of you are temporarily dismissed until further notice." "This is an outrage," protested the director of operations. "We are a board, not your subordinates to dismiss." "You're right," agreed the millionaire, surprising everyone. "And I apologize for the inappropriate choice of words. I'm requesting, not ordering. But I assure you that it is in everyone's interest that this situation be resolved with the least possible public exposure." The chairman of the board rose slowly. "I agree with the proposal. We better deal with this discreetly before any public statement." An hour later, the millionaire parked his own car at the entrance to the lake house, an unprecedented act for someone accustomed to being driven. Awaiting him in the large living room overlooking the water was a woman of approximately 30 years old, dark hair tied in a simple bun, modest but elegant clothes. "I'm her sister," she said without preamble, rising when he entered, "and I want to meet my niece." The millionaire studied the woman's face. There were familiar traits, the same eye shape, the same slightly pointed chin, an echo of the young woman he barely remembered. "Please sit down," he offered, indicating the sofa. "I have many questions." "Me too," she replied with surprising firmness, starting with, "How could you not know she was pregnant? How could you allow them to commit her? How?" Her voice faltered, choked with contained emotion. The millionaire noticed her hands trembling slightly. "I understand your anger," he said, taking a seat opposite her, "and I have no justifications, only explanations, which I'm willing to share if you want to hear them." For the next 40 minutes, he told her everything, the naked truth, without corporate filters or concerns about image. about how he had discovered the existence of the baby, the documents in the duffel bag, the ongoing investigations, and the transformation he had experienced since then. The woman listened in silence, her observant eyes never leaving his face, as if searching for signs of falsehood or manipulation. "She always spoke highly of you, you know," she said finally when he finished. "Even after being fired for being pregnant, even when I started to suspect that something was wrong with the commitment. She said you just didn't know the truth, but that if you knew..." Her voice broke, and for the first time the millionaire saw tears in the woman's eyes. "She believed in you until the end." Those words hit him like no headline or threat of lawsuit. Had managed to. The unwavering trust of someone he had failed to protect, a faith he hadn't deserved. "Would you like to meet your niece?" he asked softly. The woman nodded, unable to speak. Together, they went upstairs to the room transformed into a nursery. The nurse, seeing them, discreetly left, leaving them alone with the little one who was sleeping peacefully. "She has our mother's nose," whispered the woman, approaching the crib with reverence, "and the shape of her face. It's just like hers." The millionaire watched, in respectful silence, as the woman gently touched her niece's tiny hand. As she always did with him, the baby's fingers closed instinctively around her aunt's finger. "Would you like to hold her?" he asked. With infinite care, the woman took the baby in her arms, cradling her with the naturalness of someone who had done this before. The little one's eyes opened briefly, stared at the new face for a moment, and closed again, trusting. "She had a chosen name," said the woman suddenly. "My sister. She wanted to call her..." "Tell me," asked the millionaire. "Please." "Erdil." When the woman spoke the name, something was completed within him, a final piece fitting into a puzzle he didn't know he was assembling. A name that honored both the mother and the child, a name that would be his first true inheritance for Ray. His daughter. "It's perfect," he agreed, feeling an unknown emotion tighten his throat. Later, as the woman prepared to leave, he asked the question that had arisen in his mind throughout the visit. Would you like to be a part of her life, as an aunt?" The surprise on the woman's face was genuine. "You would allow that?" "It's not a question of allowing," he replied, surprising himself with the sincerity. "It's a question of recognizing that she deserves to know her mother's family, to know who she was through those who loved her." Before leaving, the woman handed him an envelope. "These are letters she wrote to you, but never sent. And some for the baby, for when she grew up. I thought you should have them." That night, alone in his office at the lake house, the millionaire opened the first letter with trembling hands. The delicate handwriting told a story of hope, then fear, then resignation. But in every line, even the most desperate, there was a thread of belief that if he knew the truth, everything would be different. A belief he hadn't deserved in life, but that now, holding their daughter, he swore to honor in death. The meeting at the law firm specializing in corporate law was scheduled for 9 in the morning. The millionaire arrived at 8:30, determined to review every detail one last time before the imminent confrontation. What he didn't expect was to find his former partner, current business rival, already comfortably installed in the waiting room. "Surprised to see me?" she asked, raising her eyes from the tablet where she was reading the latest news about the scandal. "You shouldn't be. I always arrive early for important negotiations." The woman, in her impeccably preserved 50s, had been his partner in the early expansions of the empire. Strategic disagreements led to a turbulent separation 5 years ago when she founded her own company, taking with her valuable clients and privileged knowledge. "This isn't a negotiation," he replied, keeping his voice neutral despite the surprise. "It's an ongoing investigation." She smiled, that calculated smile she had so often used in boardrooms to disarm opponents. Everything in life is a negotiation, especially when it involves secrets that can destroy reputations or save companies. The lead attorney, a man of grave expression and wire-rimmed glasses, appeared in the doorway, inviting them in. In the spacious conference room, the millionaire immediately noticed the unexpected presence of two board members, precisely those who had signed the transfers to the mental institution. "What's going on here?" he asked directly. "This was supposed to be a private meeting with the investigation team." "And it is," replied the attorney, adjusting his glasses with a precise gesture. "But there have been significant developments. I thought it prudent to bring all relevant parties together." The former partner settled elegantly into one of the chairs, as if that meeting was her natural territory. "Let's get straight to the point. Everyone's time here is precious." In the following minutes, the millionaire listened with growing disbelief to the proposal she presented, supported by the documents that the lawyer distributed. A complete restructuring of both companies, with a merger of certain divisions under new, shared executive leadership. His role would be reduced to strategic consultant, an empty title without real power. "In exchange," she concluded, "we guarantee the total suppression of certain unpleasant details related to the clinic, the child's mother, and the diverted funds." "Details that you knew about," he stated, staring at the counselors who avoided his gaze. "Knowledge is power," she smiled. "And in this specific case, knowledge about how certain problems were managed in the past. You're blackmailing me. I'm offering an elegant exit for all of us." She made a calculated pause. "Including for the little one. Think about her. What kind of life will she have as the center of a perpetual scandal? Daughter of the millionaire monster, as the tabloids already call you." Something in the mention of his daughter made the millionaire's blood boil, a feeling of primitive protection that was still new to him. "And if I refuse?" She sighed, as if genuinely disappointed with his resistance. "Then the investigation will follow its natural course, but with some enhancements. Additional testimonies will emerge, suggesting your prior knowledge of the whole situation. Emails will surface. You know how technology can be ambiguous about dates and origins. The media will love the story of the powerful man who tried to cover it all up with a convenient discovery of paternity. It would all be lies. Truth lies. In the information age, what matters is public perception and who controls the narrative." The millionaire rose slowly, looking at each face in the room. The board members, uncomfortable but determined to save their own reputations. The lawyer, professionally neutral but clearly aligned with the side with more power. And his former partner, confident that she had finally cornered him. "How long do I have to decide?" he asked, keeping his voice controlled. 48 hours, she replied. "Enough to consider all the implications, but not enough to elaborate a counterattack." Leaving the office, the millionaire felt suffocated by the weight of the impossible choice. Inside the car, away from calculating gazes, he allowed himself a moment of pure exhaustion. His phone rang. It was the sister of his daughter's mother. "She smiled today," said the lively voice on the other end. "A real smile, not just a reflex. The nurse said it's unusual so early. I thought you'd want to know." Those simple words, that small victory of such a fragile being, contrasted brutally with the threats and manipulations he had just experienced, a world of difference between what his life had always been and what he now discovered was important. "I'm coming there," he decided suddenly. Arriving at the lake house, he found the aunt and the nurse on the glassed-in porch overlooking the lake. The baby was awake in the special stroller, her increasingly attentive eyes watching the patterns of light that danced on the water. "I tried to record the smile, but it was too fast," explained the aunt, showing the cell phone where she had tried to capture the moment. The millionaire watched his daughter for a long moment, absorbing every detail. The tiny fingers that moved without defined purpose, the perfect shape of her ears, the slight furrow of her eyebrows when something caught her attention. A lifetime of possibilities, beginning there, totally dependent on the choices he would make. "Can I be alone with her for a moment?" he asked. When the women stepped away, he carefully picked up the baby in his arms, a gesture that still required concentration, but no longer caused the panic of the first times. "We have a problem," he whispered to his daughter, who watched him with surprising attention for her age. "And I don't know what the right solution is." The baby obviously did not answer, but her eyes, which each day showed more traces of her mother, seemed to study him with serene curiosity. "If I fight, I can lose everything. The empire I built, the name I created, the legacy I planned to leave. It would be bad for you too, growing up under that shadow." A small hand found his finger, gripping it with the disproportionate strength typical of newborns. "But if I give in, if I allow them to lie, to distort what happened to your mother?" His voice faltered unexpectedly. "What kind of father would I be? What example would I be giving?" At that moment, as if answering the unasked question, the baby smiled, a small movement of lips, brief and imperfect but unmistakably real. A smile that asked for nothing, judged nothing, just existed as pure expression of momentary contentment. Something crystallized within the millionaire. A certainty that transcended risk calculations, cost-benefit analyses, and all the metrics that had governed his life until then. When the aunt and the nurse returned, they found him with a different expression, determined but serene. "I need a favor," he said to the aunt. "Something important." In the next 24 hours, while the lawyers on both sides prepared documents and the media speculated frantically about the outcome of the secret negotiations, the millionaire executed a plan that no one, not even his closest confidants, who could anticipate. When he finally returned to the law firm to give his answer, he carried with him a thin folder. "I've made my decision," he announced to the room, filled with the same characters as the day before, plus some additional lawyers brought by his former partner. Everyone expected his surrender. After all, what choice did he have? It was the only logical path. "I will not accept your proposal," he declared to general surprise. "Instead, I have a counter-proposal." He slid copies of the document he had brought to each person present. "This is a full confession. All the details of the operation that resulted in the commitment of my daughter's mother, including names, dates, amounts, and individual responsibilities, signed by me and notarized. If any part of the threat I received yesterday is executed, this will be delivered simultaneously to 5 different news outlets, the relevant authorities, and published in full online." The former partner paled visibly. "You're bluffing. This would destroy your own reputation." "Perhaps," he agreed with strange serenity. "But it would also destroy that of everyone in this document. It's a pact of mutually assured destruction." The councillors exchanged alarmed glances. "But," continued the millionaire, "I also have a constructive proposal." He took a pen drive from his pocket and placed it on the table. "Here is my voluntary resignation from the position of CEO, effective immediately, for personal reasons. A 12-month transition plan for new leadership, chosen by the board without my interference. And the creation of an independent foundation, funded by me personally, dedicated to supporting mothers in vulnerable situations." An astonished silence dominated the room as everyone processed what they had just heard. "In exchange," he concluded, "I demand only the truth. No lies about what happened, no manipulation of the story, and the right to raise my daughter in peace, away from the spotlight, but never hiding who we are or what we overcame to be together." The former partner recovered, burst from the shock, Why would we do this? What prevents us from continuing with the original plan? The millionaire smiled slightly. Because I'm no longer the same man you thought you knew and could manipulate, and because for better or for worse, we're all part of the same story now. We can choose how it ends. He looked directly at each person in the room. So, what will it be? Mutually assured destruction or an honest new beginning? Hours later, as he drove back to the lake house, the millionaire received confirmation. The council had accepted his proposal. Not out of integrity, he knew well, but out of pragmatic calculation. In the end, it was the path with the least risk for everyone. But for him, it was much more. It was the chance to build something new, not an empire of steel and glass, but a life with real meaning, a life worthy of the smile his daughter had given him that morning. 6 months can change an entire world. The lake house, once an impersonal refuge of sterile luxury, now vibrated with signs of real life. Colorful toys occupied spaces previously reserved for abstract sculptures. Photographs in simple frames replaced works of art valued at millions. On the main wall of the living room, a mural of painted hands grew, small colored marks that documented, month by month, the baby's growth. The millionaire, now just an ex-millionaire, although his personal wealth remained substantial, adjusted the baby monitor while reviewing the latest details of the project that occupied his mornings. The New Beginnings Foundation, created in memory of his daughter's mother, was about to inaugurate its first support center for mothers in vulnerable situations. "I think she'll wake up soon," commented the aunt, entering the room with a cup of tea that she offered him. In recent months, her presence had become constant and welcome, a living bridge to the story that the little one would one day need. To know, "Is the speech for the inauguration ready?" she asked, sitting in the nearby armchair. He sighed, looking at the scattered notes. "I still haven't found the right words. It seems artificial or insufficient." The relationship between them had evolved from initial distrust to a mutual respect solidified by the shared love for the child. They weren't exactly friends, but they had formed a strange alliance that worked. "Speak from the heart," she suggested simply, "not from the man you were, but from the man you are becoming." A soft cry came from the monitor, interrupting the conversation. Both smiled involuntarily at the now familiar sound. "I'll go," he said, rising with the readiness of someone who had found a new purpose. In the carefully decorated room, a joint effort by him and the aunt in the weeks after the board's acceptance of the proposal, the little one waited in the crib, already sitting up, gripping the bars with determination. At 7 months old, she demonstrated an increasingly defined personality, observant, persistent, and surprisingly serene in the face of challenges. "Good morning, little explorer," he greeted, leaning down to pick her up. The morning ritual now flowed naturally, the diaper change, the gentle bath, the comfortable clothes, once clumsy gestures that had become a familiar dance between father and daughter. While he fed her in the high chair in the kitchen, his phone rang. It was the foundation's lawyer. "It's confirmed for this afternoon," the voice on the other. "And informed, the reporters will be present as requested. Only the selected outlets, without sensationalism." "And the other matter?" he asked, watching his daughter, who was trying with comical determination to grab the spoon from his hand. "The exhumation has been authorized. The preliminary results confirm your suspicions. The full report will be available in 2 weeks." The millionaire closed his eyes briefly, absorbing the impact of that confirmation. The investigation into the real circumstances of his daughter's mother's death progressed slowly, revealing increasingly dark truths about the mental institution and the treatments administered against the patient's will. "Thank you," he said, finally. "I'll be at the center at 4." When he hung up, he noticed the aunt standing in the kitchen doorway, her face a mask of contained emotions. "You heard?" he asked. She nodded. "I always suspected. She never had a history of mental problems. She was the most balanced person I knew." The baby banged happily on the tray of the chair, oblivious to the gravity of the adult's conversation. The contrast between the child's innocence and the weight of the past they carried created an almost painful dissonance. "We don't have to continue," offered the millionaire. "We could leave everything as it is, focus only on her future." The aunt approached, gently touching her niece's head. "And when she grows up and asks questions, what will we say then?" There was no simple answer. The truth would be painful, but the absence of it would create a void impossible to fill. "We'll say that her mother was extraordinary," he replied, finally, "and that we'll do everything to honor her memory." Hours later, dressed in a simple suit, no longer the exclusive pieces he once considered essential, the ex-millionaire stepped onto the small stage set up in the garden of the new support center. The newly renovated building, formerly an abandoned medical clinic, would now house programs for legal, psychological, and financial assistance for single mothers in vulnerable situations. The journalists present a careful selection of professionals, known for their integrity, waited expectantly. The story of the powerful businessman who had abandoned the empire to raise his daughter and found an institution in memory of her mother continued to fascinate the public. "I appreciate everyone's presence," he began, adjusting the microphone. He looked at the small crowd gathered, professionals hired for the center, local authorities, journalists, and, discreetly in the background, the aunt holding his daughter. The carefully prepared speech now seemed inadequate. Folding the sheets of paper, he put them in his pocket and decided to follow the advice he had received earlier. 7 months ago, I found an abandoned duffel bag in an alley. Inside it were my daughter and the truth that would change everything I believed was important. He paused, allowing his voice to find stability. Her mother, an extraordinary woman, whom I met briefly and never valued adequately, left us too early in circumstances that we are still investigating. This center is just the beginning of how I intend to honor her memory. The audience listened in respectful silence, capturing the unusual sincerity in his words. I'm not here as an example of virtue. I don't deserve applause for simply assuming a responsibility that is mine. I'm here as someone who has learned, in the hardest possible way, that success and power mean nothing when we lose our humanity in the process. His gaze met his daughter's, who watched with curiosity the lights and sounds around her. This center will help women who face impossible choices, who fight against systems designed to silence them, who need a place where they can find not only material resources, but dignity and respect. No mother should face alone what my daughter's mother faced. As he concluded his brief speech, without frills or grandiose promises, a restrained applause rose from the small crowd. It wasn't the thunderous ovation he used to receive when announcing billion-dollar acquisitions or revolutionary launches. It was something more valuable, genuine recognition of a beginning of redemption. After the ceremony, while granting brief and individual interviews to the selected journalists, he kept a watchful eye on his daughter, now exploring a colorful rug under the careful supervision of the aunt. Do you regret your decision to leave the chairmanship of the group? Asked a middle-aged reporter, known for her coverage of social issues. The question, so often asked in recent months, this time provoked a genuine smile. Do you know what my daughter did yesterday? He replied. She managed to sit up alone for the first time, without support. I stood there, watching every attempt, every small victory. I wouldn't trade that moment for any boardroom in the world. In the distance, the aunt caught his gaze and smiled slightly, a silent acknowledgement of the long road traveled and the even longer one ahead. The journey to reclaim his humanity had only just begun, but each small step seemed firm, like the ones his daughter would soon take. Autumn painted the garden of the lake house with shades of amber and red when the official envelope arrived. The millionaire, who now preferred to be called simply by his name, stripped of titles, immediately recognized the letterhead of the district attorney's office on the correspondence. The final report of the investigation into the death of his daughter's mother had been completed, with the baby comfortably asleep after her afternoon nap, and the aunt busy with preparations for the upcoming first birthday party. He retreated to the office. The large windows offered a view of the lake, where fallen leaves danced on the surface of the water, creating hypnotic patterns. The contents of the envelope confirmed what private investigators had already discovered: gross medical negligence, forced administration of contraindicated medications during pregnancy, falsification of consent records. The list of ethical and legal violations was extensive and disturbing. More disturbing still was the name that was repeated in several authorizations: his former personal lawyer. The phone rang, interrupting his reading. "I imagine you've received the report," said the prosecutor in charge of the case without preamble. "We need your decision on how to proceed." The question had loomed for weeks. Filing formal charges would mean a public trial, exposing painful details that his daughter might one day discover. Not prosecuting would mean a form of impunity for those responsible. "I want justice," he replied, after a moment of reflection. "But I also want to protect her from the spectacle that it would become." "There is a third way," suggested the prosecutor. "A strict settlement with substantial damages intended entirely for the foundation and a formal admission of guilt without the need for a prolonged trial." "What about the medical licenses, the ones directly responsible?" "Permanent revocation for the doctors involved. Your former lawyer and the administrators of the clinic would face severe professional restrictions and mandatory community service. It's not prison, but it's a form of accountability." The proposal seemed insufficient given the magnitude of what had happened. A life lost, a child almost abandoned. But it also offered closure without turning his daughter's personal story into a sensationalist headline for months. "I need to consult someone before deciding," he replied finally. He found the aunt in the child's room, organizing small clothes in meticulously arranged drawers. The relationship between them had evolved into a respectful partnership centered on the well-being of the little one. "The report arrived," he said simply, sitting in the armchair next to the crib. She stopped what she was doing, preparing for what was to come next. For months they had waited for this moment, the official confirmation of what they already suspected, the possibility of some form of justice. When he explained the prosecutor's proposal, the aunt listened in contemplative silence, her face revealing the internal conflict between the desire for more severe punishment and the concern for her niece's future. "What would she gain from a spectacle trial?" she asked finally, looking at the baby who slept peacefully. "Sensationalist headlines? Disturbing details preserved forever on the internet, waiting for her to find them one day?" "I feel we should fight for more," he confessed, "for true justice." The aunt approached, sitting on the edge of the armchair. For the first time since they met, she touched his arm in a gesture of genuine understanding. True justice would be to have her back, and that's impossible. Her voice faltered slightly. "Perhaps the best way to honor her is to ensure that her daughter grows up protected, loved, knowing her mother through positive stories, not court headlines." That afternoon, as the golden light of autumn bathed the property, they made the decision together. They would accept the settlement on the condition that all documentation be preserved in a public archive, accessible when and if his daughter ever wanted to know all the details. However, life rarely offers clean and organized conclusions. 3 days later, when the agreement was about to be finalized, an unexpected visitor arrived at the mansion. The millionaire's former personal lawyer, now visibly worn and aged by months of investigation, insisted on a private conversation. Against his better judgment, but moved by a curiosity he couldn't suppress, the child's father agreed to receive him on the porch, away from the ears of the aunt or the house staff. "I know nothing I say will change what happened," began the visitor, refusing the offered chair. "I didn't come to ask for forgiveness." "Then why are you here?" asked the homeowner coldly. The former lawyer pulled a pen drive from his pocket. "To deliver this, and so that you know the whole truth before finalizing the agreement." "What truth?" "That it wasn't just a decision made to protect your business interests. It was a conspiracy orchestrated by your former partner, who saw in the situation an opportunity to weaken you in the long term." The revelation hung between them like a toxic cloud. It wasn't entirely surprising. The documents had already suggested broader involvement, but the explicit confirmation opened new wounds. "She found out about the pregnancy before we did," continued the former lawyer. "She approached the young woman offering help, gained her trust, obtained compromising documents about company practices. When she realized the explosive potential of the situation, she came to me with a proposal: solve the problem in a way that seemed to protect your interests, but that actually created a time bomb that could be detonated when it was convenient for her." "Why are you telling me this now? Why did you participate in it?" The older man averted his gaze to the distant lake. "Ambition, resentment for years of treatment as a mere employee, never as a partner. The promise of partnership in her new company." A loaded pause. "And because in the end I thought we were just getting rid of a gold digger, I never imagined." His voice faltered, the professional facade finally cracking to reveal the weight of guilt. "Never imagined she would die, that there would be a real child involved?" The ex-millionaire's tone rose dangerously. "That your discreet solutions would have human consequences?" "What's on the pen drive proves everything," replied the visitor, regaining his composure. "Emails, transfers, the complete plan. Enough to destroy your former partner completely, if you want to." The homeowner picked up the small object, weighing it in his hand, as if it contained much more than digital data, as if it contained an alternative future, a path of revenge and mutual destruction. "Why give me this now? The agreement is practically closed." "Because you deserve to know exactly who you're fighting against. And because..." He hesitated briefly. "Because when I saw you on TV with the child, talking about the support center, I realized that you have become someone I never imagined possible." The visitor left without another word, leaving behind a legacy of disturbing revelations and even more complex choices. That night, after putting his daughter to sleep, a ritual that had become sacred in his new life, the ex-millionaire sat alone on the porch. The pen drive remained untouched on the table, its potentially explosive content awaiting a decision. The door slid open smoothly, and the aunt joined him in contemplative silence. He didn't need to explain. She had seen the visitor and understood intuitively the gravity of the situation. "What are you going to do?" she asked simply, sitting in the chair next to him. He looked at the small electronic device. "Part of me wants to destroy her completely, expose everything, make her pay in full. And the other part," the question hung in the night air, laden with possibilities. Inside, the child who had redefined his existence slept peacefully, oblivious to the adult storms that still reverberated from her arrival in the world. "The other part wonders what example I'll be setting for my daughter." he replied finally. What lessons about forgiveness, justice, and moving on? The aunt nodded slowly. She would be proud to see the man you are becoming, you know. My sister always believed in people, in their ability to change. The words hit him deeply, provoking an emotion he was still learning to process. A mixture of gratitude, regret, and a growing determination to honor not only the memory of his daughter's mother, but also the trust she had placed in him, even without truly knowing him. That night, he made his decision. One that did not involve revenge or destruction, but also would not allow the truth to remain completely hidden. A decision that, he hoped, his daughter would one day understand as part of the complex but honest legacy he was building for her. The small house by the lake was decorated with colorful balloons and simple banners. Nothing ostentatious, nothing extravagant, just the essentials to celebrate the second birthday of the girl who had transformed so many lives. On the gently sloping lawn that descended to the water, children of varying ages played under the watchful eyes of their parents. Families benefited by the support center, employees who had become friends, some neighbors who, over time, had overcome their initial curiosity about the reclusive ex-millionaire and accepted the unconventional new family. Seated in a simple wooden chair, watching his daughter, who was now running with still unsteady steps, chasing soap bubbles, the man who had once commanded an empire reflected on the past 18 months. Time, which had once seemed a resource to be conquered and subjugated, now flowed at its own pace, marked by first words, first steps, first smiles with conscious meaning. "She's happy," commented the aunt, approaching with 2 glasses of homemade lemonade. "Genuinely happy." He nodded, accepting the drink with a grateful smile. The relationship between them had evolved into something unexpected, not romantic, as some speculated, but a deep partnership based on the shared love for the little one. The judge finalized the process yesterday, he informed. The final agreement was signed. After months of complex negotiations, the case had been closed, with a delicate balance between justice and protection. The contents of the pen drive, after careful verification by independent experts, had been used not for public destruction, but as leverage for a more comprehensive agreement. His former partner, confronted with the evidence, had accepted terms that included an astronomical contribution to the foundation and permanent removal from any executive position in the market. Without media exposure, he continued, without a public trial, but with real consequences and preserved documentation. The aunt observed the niece, who was now curiously exploring a still-wrapped gift. "Do you think we made the right choice?" It was a question they both revisited periodically, not out of doubt, but as a reaffirmation of their joint commitment to the child's well-being. "I think we made the best choice possible in impossible circumstances," he replied. "She will grow up knowing the truth, but she will not be defined by it." The little one approached running, a wide smile illuminating her face, now increasingly resembling her mother's. "Daddy! Auntie! Look!" In her small hands, she held a flower picked from the garden, a simple, common daisy, but which she presented as the greatest treasure in the world. "It's beautiful, my love," replied the father, leaning down to examine the discovery with the seriousness it deserved. "For you," she declared, extending the flower with the pure generosity of childhood. The simple gesture, offering something precious without expectation of return, hit him with an almost physical force. How many transactions in his previous life had been calculated, measured, evaluated in terms of advantage and return? And here was his daughter, teaching him, without words or conscious intention, the value of giving simply for love. "Thank you," he replied, his voice slightly choked with emotion. "I'll keep it forever." Satisfied, the little girl ran back to her explorations, oblivious to the profound impact of her small gesture. The afternoon progressed in quiet celebration. There were no photographers, celebrities, or ostentation. Only the authenticity of shared moments and the simplicity he had learned to value. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the guests departed, leaving behind only the immediate family. "I almost forgot," said the aunt, retrieving a package from the kitchen cabinet. "This arrived yesterday. I thought you might want to open it when we were alone." The package, carefully wrapped, came with a simple card. Upon opening it, he immediately recognized the handwriting of the nurse who had been with them in the early months, a dedicated woman who now directed the medical department of the support center. "We found this among the belongings recovered from the clinic," the note read. "We believe it belonged to her and that one day your daughter may want to have it." With reverent care, the father opened the wrapping. Inside, he found a small suitcase. Not the original where he had found his daughter, but a miniature version, delicate, made to hold childhood treasures. It looked old, possibly an item preserved from her mother's own childhood. Opening the small suitcase, he discovered an interior lined with soft fabric and carefully preserved a sonogram, the first image of his daughter when she was still just a promise in her mother's womb. Alongside it, a diary with few pages, filled thoughts, hopes, and dreams of a young woman who imagined a future she would never live. The tears came without warning, silent but uncontrollable, not from grief or guilt, although those feelings were never completely absent, but from a deep gratitude for the life they now had. Imperfect, built on loss and pain, but authentic and full of possibilities. The aunt sat down beside him, her own face marked by similar emotions. In silence, they shared the moment of connection with the one who, although physically absent, remained the gravitational center of their reconfigured lives. "One day, when she's older," said the aunt finally, "we will tell her all the stories, the difficult and the beautiful ones, about how her mother loved her so much that she fought against an entire system, about how her father found her and, in that moment, found himself too." The little girl ran into the room, now dressed in her favorite pajamas, carrying the book she demanded as a nightly ritual. Seeing the emotional adults, she stopped, observing them with the surprising perception she sometimes demonstrated. "Daddy sad?" she asked, approaching with genuine concern. The father wiped away the tears quickly, smiling to reassure her. "No, my love. Daddy is happy, very happy to have you." Satisfied with the explanation, the child stretched out her arms, asking to be held, a request promptly granted. While the father opened the book for the bedtime story, the small suitcase rested on the table, a tangible symbol of the extraordinary journey that had begun in a dark alley and continued to unfold in directions that no one could have foreseen. Later, when the house quieted down and the girl slept peacefully in her room decorated with luminous stars on the ceiling, the father sat on the porch, contemplating the moonlit lake. The aunt joined him, bringing 2 cups of hot tea. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, observing his contemplative expression. "About suitcases," he replied with a slight smile. "About how we carry things inside them, objects, documents, sometimes entire lives. About how a suitcase abandoned in an alley contained both my past and my future." She nodded, understanding the metaphor without needing further explanation. "You know what impresses me most," he continued. "It's not just how my life has changed, it's how I have changed. As if that suitcase contained not only my daughter and compromising documents, but also a different version of myself, one that was waiting to be discovered. Some people live entire lives without finding that version," observed the aunt. "Some never allow themselves to change, even when the universe practically begs them to do so." They fell into comfortable silence for a few minutes, absorbing the tranquility of the night and the light weight of gratitude that now permeated their lives. "Tomorrow is the big day," she reminded, "the inauguration of the new center in the capital. The project that had begun as a small local foundation had expanded rapidly, thanks in part to the substantial resources of the settlement. Soon, similar centers would exist in 5 cities, offering comprehensive support to women in situations that had once seemed hopeless. She would be proud, he said, not as a question, but as an acknowledgement. Yes, confirmed the aunt with quiet conviction, not because of the money or the structure, but because of the intention, because of the real commitment to change. As the night advanced, enveloping the small house in contemplative quietness, the ex-millionaire reflected on the paradox that had become his life. How he had lost an empire and gained a world. How a suitcase that could have meant his ruin became the path to his salvation. Inside the house, protected by love and truth, his daughter dreamed childish dreams, growing not in the shadow of a scandal or an empire, but in the light of a story of redemption that one day would be entirely hers to understand, accept, and transcend. And perhaps that was the greatest victory, not the centers built, not the imperfect justice achieved, not even the personal transformation realized, but the simple fact that a child, found in the most unlikely circumstances, now slept in peace, secure in the instinctive knowledge that she was loved not for what she represented, but simply for who she was. A life, after all, that was worth infinitely more than any fortune. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive new stories every day. What would you do in the millionaire's place? Comment below and share this story with someone special.